I pressed stop instead of start again. Oh dear. Right, so this is, please excuse my out of the ordinary position. This is episode 185 of the Mouse Makes Knitting podcast. My name is Mandy, sometimes known as Mouse, and I am unable to press the correct button on a video. So I'd recorded a little bit and then I stood up so I could show you what I'm wearing. It is the outline tee and I have finished it. And I have mixed emotions. As you can see, I stopped it a bit shorter than the pattern said, but it is still a little longer than I feel comfortable with because it goes from very nearly my widest part to the next widest part and completely skips my waist. It just makes me wide and square. I have tried, if I hitch it back so that it's kind of a high-low hem, that's not quite so bad. But then I have this going on at the back. I don't know. I've also bound off the arms a bit more tightly than was sensible. They're not too tight, but they are... I think if I put my arms up, they'll get stuck and I'll have to pull them down. I could take that back out and redo it, but I don't know that I can be bothered. It's not blocked yet, hence the fact that I have to keep doing that so you can see the drop stitches. I'll show you the back quickly. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? There's no point me turning around because if I turn around you can't see it. Right, I'm going to sit back down. Come back to me. Right, let me tip you down. There we go. So, all in all, as I say, mixed feelings. It knit itself. It is, however, the style that I don't think fits me or suits me to my best advantage. I think if I knit it again, and I probably will, I will go down at least a size, maybe 2. And then, because you don't put any sleeves on, this is just the side, then I might pick up and put on some short sleeves. So I get a sleeve that's this length, but without this much extra body. I think I will be happier with that. But anyway, outline tee by Jessie Made Designs, finished, off the needles, and bearing in mind it's kind of a bonus project because I thought I had frogged it. I can't complain too much, can I? Right, I have cast a couple of new things on. Sorry, I can hear next door's doorbell, which makes me think that ours might ring in a minute as well because I am expecting the postman. I think one of the things that I've cast on new... No, you haven't. You haven't seen either of them. No. Okay. This is a new cast on. It's called April. There you go. Back in a minute. I'm back. And I've rearranged things a bit, so I knew it would happen. I waited till... What time is it now? I waited till 2 o'clock to come and record this because I thought the postman would have been by now. But of course he hadn't. And now he's interrupted. Never mind. Right. April tank top. That's the back. The front is just kind of a high round neckline. It's by Caroline Day, sorry. with a Y. And it has lace up here and then around the bottom. And they're different laces in the two places. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. And it's fallen then. I started knitting this to the lace pattern because you start with the little bit between the shoulder blades. And I don't know if I was doing something wrong, but every single row I had one stitch more than I should have had. But if I counted my stitches, I had the right number. So I don't know. So I have this much, which is not very much. If you can imagine, this is going to go at the back, sort of there. This is half of it, so it's going to be about that long. And the yarn I'm using, sorry, I distracted myself in the middle there. Started knitting it, wasn't getting on with the lace, so I'm just doing it plain. And I do have a reason for that as well, which I may explain at a later date. So, knitting it plain, you started off on 2.75 needles, and I looked at that and thought, is the whole thing? But it's not. It's just the bit at the back. The yarn that I'm using, which is coming out in this kind of, I don't know, mouldy tree trunk sort of a colour, is this. It's some of my own hand dyed. I'm going to put it down because it's crinkly. And I said, when I was talking to my friends, I said it was last year, but it wasn't. It was the year before. I did some Halloween sock sets, and this one was jack-o'-lantern. It originally had a dark blue mini with it, I think. So it was 50 grams of 80/20 merino nylon, and then 20 grams of 75/25 merino nylon, because I thought toes and heels you might want something a little bit more hard wearing. But I had 5 of these 50-gram skeins left, and I need about 250 grams for this top in my size. So I thought, well, I'll use that. I really like the colours. I can see that other people may not have done, which is why I don't think I sold one. I think I only did 5 of each, and I've got all 5, so I don't think I sold any of this colourway, which is fine because I really like it. So that was my first new cast on. My second new cast on, where's my tablet, was with the drop saffron that I bought to make another one of these. Having seen how this fitted, I wasn't sure that I wanted to make another one because I had, right, backtrack a little bit, I had 6 50-gram balls to make this. I didn't touch one of them, and I've probably got the best part of another 50 grams left as well. So I've used just over 200 grams for this. And I'd bought 6 more balls to knit another one. And I thought, well, it's going to be a waste, especially if I do a smaller size. So a couple of things happened at the same time. I made that decision, and happy coincidence, a friend on Saturday told me, or told all of us in our friend group, that the Woolly Badger was having a pattern sale, and I can't remember how many there were, but her top selling patterns were free just for the day. So we all rushed off and had a look, and I found this one. It's called the Day Off Badge Tee by the Woolly Badger. There's lace just on one side. I do not really enjoy knitting lace, but I looked at this and I thought, well, it's not terribly complicated. I expect after a couple of pattern repeats I'll be able to read my knitting and not need to keep looking at the pattern, because that's one of my issues. I get really frustrated having to keep look at each line of the pattern, and if something requires a lot of counting, I have dyscalculia, and that's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. So I really struggle with counting. But this looked fairly simple, and so I thought I'm going to give this a go with the drop saffron. I had the exact right amount of yarn, but as I have demonstrated with this outline tee, the length that this has come out is about the same length that that top is supposed to be, and it's not flattering on me, it really isn't. So what I've done is, it's knit from the bottom up. I've taken it. I do apologise for the lorry outside that's making air brake noises. I've taken a bit of a loose calculation, and I've ordered 4 more balls in the same dye lot. I went onto Wool Warehouse, which is where I got it from, and they had them in the same dye lot. Now this did not come up the right colour last week, and it's not really coming out the right colour this week. Last week it looked bright blue. This week it's darker than it actually is. It is drop saffron again, saffron. I keep saying saffron. This is colour 51, which is called petrol. I have 6 balls. I have another 4 coming. I don't need you yet. Actually, you can go there. So I cast it on Saturday evening, and I have this much so far. So I know, 1.5 inches, and I've done not even half a repeat of the pattern. Can you see that? Kind of. If I hold it against my black shirt, sort of, you can sort of see that. The shirt is designed so that you can wear it either way round. I think I will probably wear it with the lace at the back. As I say, I'm not a very lacy person, and I will just get it caught on things. I know I will, because I am clumsy. So that is then the back, and that's about all there is to tell you about it so far. Because it's knit from the bottom up and it's like this straight, I'm making it longer, as I said, and so I've cast on a larger size, and my intention is to knit straight until I get to my waist, then decrease to the size that I want for my bust, and from there we should be okay. This could all end up being a horrible, horrible disaster, and I'll end up having to knit something else yet again. But those were my 2 new cast-ons. And then something that I did show you last week and I've been carrying on with, turn that off before it goes flat. This, not very exciting to look at. This is called, oh, it's very dark, you can't see. Thank you very much. And I'm not even going to try and attempt to pronounce the name of the designer. It's all down below. So this again is a tank, and it's kind of one that you could wear either way because the front and the back are knit the same. And it's very, very difficult to show you. Oh, I tell you what I could do. Well, that should do. Right, hang on. Hang on. Hang on, I'm going in. Right, so this is the bit that's going to be around my neck, but it will be pulled out by the rest of it. So it won't stretch quite as far as it should because half the stitches are on a spare piece of yarn. So this is going to come down like so. You're increasing every other row as you go down, and you just keep increasing until you've got the distance you're happy with from there to the underarm, and then see how many stitches you've got, and if you need to you can add some. It is 2x2 rib, which I'm dealing with okay at the moment because I'm increasing every other row. Once I get to knitting in the round, I think I'm going to be okay because it'll only be a relatively short distance. I'm literally going to knit this to finish under my bust at my waist, because what I want to do is wear it either under some dungarees or over a dress, just for a bit of, I don't know, extra shaping, extra warmth, whatever. The colour, again, is coming out a really dark blue, and it's not. It's a beautiful, it's called deep teal. It's a much yellowy green. Let me see if I can... Oh, let's see if I can make it be the right colour by bringing it closer. Hang on. Whoops. No. If I take it over here? No. No, it won't do it. It is a much yellower bluey green than it is showing on the screen, which is very frustrating. But if you are desperate to know the correct colour, if you go onto Wool Warehouse and look at Yarnsmith's Merino Sock in colourway 235, which is deep teal, you will be able to see the true colour, which is not what you're seeing on the screen. Oh, it drives me insane. I know people have said to me, oh, it doesn't matter. It does matter. To someone who colour is really important to, it does matter that I can't show you the correct colour. Very, very frustrating. Right. And here endeth the knitting content. That is literally it. That's all I've done this week knitting wise. I did do a little cross stitch on Friday evening. I might as well start knitting while I'm talking to you, mightn't I? I might as well have a little knit and natter. Where are we? I just want to put a progress keeper in here because I showed it to you a couple of weeks ago and I didn't put one in. Oh, I've got one ready to go in. Oh well. Let's put this one in. And take that one off because I can use that one on something else. The progress keeper I wanted to put on here, I'll show you in just a second, is one that my friend Sarah made me. It's a little squirrel and his nut. And I know that it was very, very difficult for her to get him to hold the nut. So it is one of my favourites. This, if you're interested, is my muscle bra that I'm knitting in my own hand spun yarn. Right. What was I saying? Where can I put this that it's not going to end up on the floor? Nowhere, probably. Friday night, my friend Denise, who has the Dear Designs channel, has started doing a live here on YouTube on Friday night. And so this week I took that time, I think it's about 3 hours we were on, to do a bit of cross stitch, which I haven't touched since May probably. I was going to do a floss tube episode on the 1st of every month. Yes, that was a flash in the pan that died down very, very quickly, I'm afraid. I did one, and I think the next one was due on the 1st of April, and because I hadn't touched any cross stitch, I didn't do it. You can hardly blame me, can you? And that has kind of ignited my interest again. So Friday night might be cross stitch night. I think I'm kind of resenting doing it any other time because it's eating into my knitting time, and knitting is by far and away my favourite craft. It's the one that I've taken part in the longest, and the one that gives me the most pleasure, I suppose, because I am both a process and a progress knitter depending on the project. So I'm just thinking most of the stuff that I've got on the needles at the moment is product. What did I say before? Process or product it should be. I don't think that's what I said before. I don't remember. I'm having one of those days, have you noticed? The only thing that is very much a process knit is the Treasure Trove wrap by Stephen West that I'm knitting, because it's done in the dip stitches that were in one of his shawls, and I just love them. I just love doing them. But yeah, everything else is because I want the finished article, and some of it I'm not, the sun's coming out, some of it I'm not enjoying very much at all. The sun coming out today is a little bit of an insult because today is Monday. I am recording on Monday because I will be busy tomorrow. Historically, as they say, I've always recorded on a Tuesday for the podcast to go up on a Wednesday. But this last few weeks I've been doing it on a Monday because I'm too busy on a Tuesday. Let me just... That's better. Yeah, so today's Monday. Yesterday was, predictably enough, Sunday. And Dave and some of his friends had arranged to go to a motorcycle show in a town in Devon called Seaton. It's on the coast and it happens every year. And what they do is they basically close the seafront, and it's a motorcycle show where you can go and you can show your own bike, or you can just go and wander and look at everybody else's. It's for charity. So they decided, they go every year, they were going to go, and a couple of his friends said, yeah, I want to go, but not if it's raining. And Dave didn't want to go if it was raining either. But the weather forecast said it was going to be cloudy all day. There might be a shower between 10 and 11. I'm sure you can tell where this is going. So his friend Nick came over. He was late because he'd got on his bike, gone to fill it up with petrol. Petrol had started pouring back out of it, so that needed to be fixed. So he changed to a different bike. They've all got more than one bike. And came on that. So that held him up. So they were late leaving. They were also late leaving because they've got to have a cup of tea before they can go anywhere. And that takes them about an hour and a half because they have to catch up on each other's news and gossip and everything. I personally would have said, let's get a drink when we get there and get there while it's dry. But I wasn't going. So I had other fish to fry yesterday. So off they set, and as they pulled away, it started spitting with rain. And Dave said they didn't get terribly wet, it was just spitting a little bit until the way you go over like a little Humpty Back bridge. As they came over the Humpty Back bridge, the heavens opened and they were soaked, literally within seconds, soaked to the skin, because they were both wearing what's known as an Air Max jacket. So it's got all the armour in, but it's got mesh sections to keep you cooler, which are of course not waterproof, being full of holes. So they are both very, very wet. But they were already there and they thought they might as well stay. And they just got wetter and wetter. And then it stopped raining. I was going to say the sun came out. It didn't. It just stopped raining. And they'd had a look and they'd had a coffee and they'd had some chips. And they decided they'd come home. And predictably, as they got on their bikes to come home, it began raining again. And they got probably 2/3 of the way home and discovered that the road was closed. There'd been an accident. And so they were sent off on a diversion. And the diversion took them down all sorts of country lanes. And it wasn't just them. It was them and about 50 cars, all trying to pass each other on tiny, narrow country lanes that were all muddy and horrible and slippery because the heavy rain had wet all the leaves and the dirt that had been laying on the road for weeks where it hasn't been wet, and washed down loads of other debris, and it was all just like an ice rink. So it's about, I suppose, 25-30 minutes from here to there, and it took them an hour and a half to get home, by which time Dave was absolutely sodden. So was Nick. Nick lives about 20 minutes further on than us. He got very, very wet. Washed the bike when he got home, because that's what they do. You wash the bike before you wash yourself. David washed his bike before he went, so that needs doing again. This is all very boring for you, but you said you just wanted me to sit here and talk to you, so that's what I'm doing. And then Dave went to help another friend who's got a problem with his truck. And that's where he is today. Today's his day off. His shop is closed on a Sunday and a Monday. And so he has gone over. What they were trying to do yesterday, they couldn't get finished because it kept pouring with rain on them. So he's gone over today to try and get it finished, because his friend has no other form of transport and he needs to get to work and back. So it's got to be done. So this weekend I have seen very little of my husband. He went off yesterday morning and didn't come back until about 7 o'clock last night. Might have been a bit earlier, after he'd been to help his friend and everything. And then he was up and back out again this morning. So I've had a quiet weekend, left it to my own devices. Peter and Lauren have been away just for the day and overnight. They're back. They went off on the bike, and back in 2019, Peter had a very serious motorcycle accident. One that he shouldn't really have survived, and I really don't know how he did. He's been left with, I won't say life-changing injuries, but injuries that will have an impact for the rest of his life. But he is still able to work and he is still able to ride. He's sometimes in quite a bit of pain, but he's brave about it. And really, motorcycles are in his blood. They're in mine. They were in his father's. So it was no surprise to anybody. After the accident, the surgeon told him 9 months before you can get back on a bike, because that was the first thing he asked, of course. It's the first thing any of us ask. And he was back on a bike about 8 weeks later, in agony, which he wouldn't admit to, but yeah. But since then, whenever anyone is out on their bikes, I am anxious. I think it's because it it was a very nasty accident that he shouldn't have survived, as I said. But it came literally weeks before I fell seriously ill, and then COVID hit, and I think the whole thing is just tied together in my head. So I have been listening for them to come back, because they live very close to us. They live literally about 100 yards up there. I can't see their house because there are houses in between, but I can see the house that is sideways onto their garden. So they come down their little private road, and then they go past ours wherever they're going. So I heard him leave yesterday, and I heard him come back this morning. So I can rest now. They're back home safe. Ewan was supposed to have a competition yesterday, a kickboxing competition, and literally just before he was about to leave, he got a message saying that his opponent had pulled out, so there was no point in him going. There was only one person other than him in his class for him to fight. They call it something else, but I can't remember. So there was no point in him going. So that was a bit disappointing for him. But he's had a nice, quiet, restful weekend. He's got a bit of an injury with his shoulder. He does kickboxing, obviously, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu and judo. And I think jiu-jitsu practice, they call it rolling, I think. Anyway, he was doing a practice fight 3 weeks ago, and I don't know exactly what happened, but it ended up with his weight and the other person's weight on his arm, and it gave way, and we think he's torn something in his shoulder. He's had an awful lot of trouble with it. For about a week, he would wake up in the morning and couldn't move his arm. And you're probably thinking, well, of course he went to the doctor. Well, he didn't go to the doctor. You can't get to the doctor. By the time you've got an appointment, whatever it is that was wrong with you is either cured or killed you. So there's no point trying to go and see the doctor. And it wasn't serious enough for him to go to accident and emergency. So he's been treating it with ice and heat and ibuprofen gel. And it is sorting itself out, but it is still a bit sore. So it's probably not a bad thing that he missed his competition. And that's about it, really, news-wise. If you're still here, Members Zoom is this coming Thursday, the 31st, at 8 p.m. There's a shop update at the weekend, but I haven't got the stuff to show you to hand, so if you're interested in that, you're following the shop anyway, so you'll see when it goes up. And that really is all I've got to tell you. So I did think about this, and I did prepare a story to tell you. Now, you are going to think that I've made this up, but I'm here to tell you, cross my heart and hope to die, this is the honest truth. You won't believe a word of it, but it really is the truth. When I was about 20 years old, I was kidnapped by a Jehovah's Witness. I'd better explain, hadn't I? I was still living at home with my mum and my brothers, and we lived in what used to be called a maisonette. And essentially what it was an old Victorian house, and it had been converted so that downstairs was one flat, and then the second and third floors were another flat. So it was like a house on top of a flat, basically. And you had a main front door and a little entranceway, if you think of a Victorian house, just really from the front door to the stairs was the entrance way, and then there was a door to the downstairs flat, a door to the upstairs flat, and you went straight up the stairs into the upstairs flat. So everyone was at work but me. I was getting ready for work. I had, and I can't remember if it was when I had 2 or 3 jobs, but I worked in I must have been younger than 20 thinking about it. Maybe 19? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I worked in a canteen at lunchtime and I cleaned offices in the evening. And I can't remember whether it was when I was also a Domino's pizza delivery driver. I think that might have been later. I might have just had the 2 jobs. That's kind of irrelevant. Anyway, my boyfriend at the time worked for BT, the telephone company, and it was back in the days when they had little yellow vans. And if he was in the area, because where I lived was his area to cover, and he had the time, he would pick me up and take me to work. And so I was getting ready for work and I was like 90% dressed and the doorbell rang. And I thought it was my boyfriend come to give me a lift to work. So I ran down to open the door, perfectly decent, but only wearing my underwear and a slip. I used to wear a full slip underneath my canteen uniform. And I opened the door and it wasn't my boyfriend at all. It was a very tall black lady who was clearly from the Jehovah's Witnesses. She had all her little watchtower pamphlets and what have you. And as I opened the door to her, the main front door, the front door to our flat slammed shut. And the look on my face must have alerted her to the fact that this was not a good thing. Because she said, "Are you locked out now?" And I went, "Yes, I am." So I'm standing there wearing nothing but a bra, knickers, tights and a slip. No shoes, no nothing. And now I'm locked out. As I say, my mum, my brothers were at work. The lady who lived in the flat downstairs, whose name was Joy, and gave me a little bottle of L'air du Temps for my 21st birthday, and I kept it for ages. I didn't actually like the perfume, but it had like a little bird for the stopper. It was really pretty. Anyway, she was at work. She had a spare key. Nobody else did. And I was just horrified because now I was going to be late for work, possibly not even get to work. I didn't get to work in the end, spoiler alert. And it was, I suppose, about 10 o'clock in the morning. No one was due home for hours and hours. So I explained my predicament, and she was as horrified as I was, and she said, "Okay, hang on, wait here." And she disappeared off, and I'm trapped there in the little hallway. There's nowhere to sit. There's nothing to do. Just trapped in a little white box. And she was gone for ages. I don't know how long. I didn't even have a watch on, but it was a really long time. I didn't think she was coming back. And then she came back and she'd got a dress and a pair of shoes. And she said, "Put these on, I'll take you to mine, and you can ring your mum and get her to come and collect you." And it was back in the days where we knew people's phone numbers, because we didn't have mobile phones. They hadn't yet been invented. And if you wanted to ring somebody, you had to know the number. So your head was full of important telephone numbers. I don't even know my husband's mobile number or the children's anymore. I only know my own, which is no use really, is it? So anyway, I put this dress on, and as I say, she was a very tall lady, and I am 5'4", and the dress came down almost to my ankles, and these shoes that were at least 2-3 sizes too big. And I shuffled out to her car, all very trusting, because she was a woman of God, let's face it, and I had no option. And she took me to her house, which was about half an hour away, I suppose. And said, there's the phone. And she made me a cup of tea. And then she said, I'm really sorry, I've got to go to work. So I'm now trapped alone in this lady's house. And I rang my mum, I rang her at work, and I explained what happened. And my mum, as you would imagine, thought I was pulling her leg. Sorry, if you're not in this country, that means joking. And I said, no, I swear I'm not. I'm at this house. And the lady had gone to work by now. I didn't know what the street was called. I didn't know the house number. I looked on the front of the door, opened the door, and there's no number there. And my mum by now is panicking that I've been kind of kidnapped. And my mum didn't drive, but she got a colleague at work to come. And basically they drove up and down the road while I peered like this out the window, and they peered at everybody's windows until they saw me and I saw them. And then my mum sort of said, well, leave the lady's shoes and coat behind. I said, shoes and dress. And I said, well, I can't. I've got nothing. So she said, right. So she took her coat off and I walked to the car, got into the car. She took the shoes back indoors, left a note for the lady saying, thank you so much. They brought me home. By now, I was like hours late for work. I hadn't been able to ring them and let them know. And then we had to go through the whole process again when we got home of her going inside to get me some shoes so that I could get from the car to the house. It was just insane. And I swear every word of it is true. Everybody thinks you must be making it up. Why would you go with a complete stranger to somewhere you didn't know? Why would a complete stranger take you somewhere that you didn't know? Why would they go to work and leave you alone in their house, bearing in mind you are a complete stranger to them? But it is true. Every word of it is true. So, now you know. I have been kidnapped, though not with any malice, and no yarn was required to get me to get into the lady's car, or cake, or anything else that I could be enticed into a car with. Kittens, puppies, babies, anything. Nothing. So, that's it. That's your 3/4 of an hour of Mandy insanity for this week. I hope you have enjoyed it. I'm going to get on with the rest of my day now. And until I see you next week, which I probably will, with again very little to show you, but hey, it's the summer, I'm doing other things, and I'm frustrated at the lack of knitting I'm getting done. So, you never know, there might be more. There might be more to show you next week, but I don't think there will be. I think there will just be the projects I've shown you today, but a little bit more of them, hopefully. If I've got any significant progress on my cross stitch, I might show you that, because you haven't seen it since March and you might be interested. I know there are lots of people out there who aren't in the least bit interested in my cross stitch or my spinning, but I stand by the fact that this is my podcast for me to show my crafting, and if you don't like it, you can skip that bit. It's fine. I'm just looking for a... Do they go? No, they don't go. I like to put stitch stoppers that coordinate with my projects, and this, you'd think it'd be easy to find some with all those colours, wouldn't you? There's a blue one. Let's have a blue one and an orange one. There, I'm happy with that. Right, I am definitely going to go away now and leave you alone to contemplate your life choices and wonder why you did in fact subscribe to this podcast, which is clearly hosted by a madwoman. And I will see you next week. Until then, bye guys.